Hello, in this video, I will talk about HPLC column connections. The end fittings of an HPLC column are connected to the HPLC instrument and to the detector using fittings. First, let me talk about the material used in the fittings. There are two types of the fittings: polymer type, specifically PEEK, and stainless steel type. This is a PEEK fitting. PEEK fittings are less expensive than those of stainless steel and do not require separate ferrules. In contrast, this is a stainless steel fitting. The fitting on the left has a large male nut that can be tightened by hand. The fitting on the right requires a wrench for tightening. Compared to PEEK types, stainless steel fittings can withstand higher back pressures. Choosing the correct fitting type depends on the overall back pressure, which is determined by both the column and on the instrumentation. Therefore, it is important to choose a fitting that has a pressure rating higher than the back pressures required for the analyses. For GL Sciences Insertsil and Inertsystain LC columns packed with 3 to 10 micron particles, the back pressure limit is 20 megapascal, and so PEEK fittings can be used. Of course, stainless steel fittings can also be used. Alternately, 3 micron particles are also available in high-pressure type columns that can withstand back pressures of up to 50 megapascals. When using such HP-type columns, we recommend finger-tight fittings, which are rated up to 50 megapascals. Columns packed with 1.9 or 2 micron particles involve back pressures of up to 80 megapascals. For such high pressures, we recommend HPLC fittings that are rated up to 140 megapascals. Let's now talk about HPLC column end fittings. There are two types of column end fittings: Parker type and Waters type. The two types have different depths, which determine the length of the tubing that extends from the ferrule. A mismatch between the end fitting type and the length of the tubing tip may adversely affect the analysis. Let's look at how such a mismatch can affect chromatographic performance. Ideally, there should not be any gaps between the column end fitting and the tip of the tubing. However, if the depth of the inlet fitting is longer than the length of the tip that extends from the fitting, a gap is created, resulting in dead volume that may affect the PEEK shape in the chromatogram. In other words, it is very important to ensure that the length of the exposed tip matches the depth of the end fitting. I will now explain how to connect if the tubing tip is mismatched to the column end fitting. Of course, the end fitting of the column cannot be changed. However, the position of the fitting can be altered along the tubing. And so the easiest solution is to adjust the length of the tubing tip. The method of positioning the fitting along the tubing depends whether the ferrule is fixed or free to move. If the ferrule is free to move along the tubing, position the fitting to provide the appropriate length of the tubing tip. This is for PEEK tubing and fittings. First, position the male nut to expose the tubing tip with a slightly longer length than the depth of the end fitting. Then, as the male nut is tightened, the position of the ferrule will become fixed with matching length. The result is a seamless connection without any dead volume. On the other hand, the position of the ferrule is fixed when metal ferrules or PTFE tubings are utilized. In such cases, the length of the tubing tip is fixed, and therefore, a proper connection cannot be made using the existing fittings. And so, first, discard the old fittings by cutting the tubing where the male nut is attached. Next, position a new male nut and ferrule to allow a slightly longer tip. Then tighten to fix the ferrule at the proper depth.